let's start by the needs on the ground. Hamid Tawfiki, in Morocco, for instance, in your example, you can speak to both a country that has many sustainable development projects that would like to attract sustainable development financing to make a positive impact, but also you can speak from a private equity point of view with state money as well. What are your thoughts on the subject?
Thank you. In order to contextualize, in fact, what I will be describing as a thought and also the action we are developing in Morocco, maybe just for the audience, let's introduce, in fact, my institution, which is CDG, which is Caisse de dépôt de gestion, which is a public institution, quote-unquote, national development bank, local national development bank. So we were, as an institution, in fact, were pretty much involved in development. And development is something which is part of our DNA. And we started, as 10 years ago, we all used to say, not only in Morocco, but elsewhere, that sustainability is an issue for the North and development is an issue for the South. But in fact, now we are thinking about sustainability as being embedded, in fact, in the way we think our development. So in Morocco, we started having the constitution, 2011, that put sustainability development as a right, in fact, for citizens, and we followed by having a national strategic development plan for sustainable development, and it was approved in 2017. Based on that, we effectively we have the government developed a series of objectives and targets. I think 169 targets clearly. The question now is, in fact, implementing them. And this is, I think, the main issue, because we have several challenges. So we were talking about SDG, but we still have to broaden, in fact, the ownership process of SDG, in fact, locally. And this is something important, because people, they don't speak fluently SDG everywhere. So you have to explain to them how these SDG are, they relate to them, their day-to-day, in fact, concern and problem, and how they deal with their first concern. As you know, for example, Morocco, the unemployment is key. So, and also the inequality. So this is the first challenge. The second one is to align, in fact, development priority with and objective with national priority, because when you have the strategy for sustainable development, you have to make sure that the existing sectorial policy, that they converge. So you have a series of challenges. One is important, and I will come back to, which is the monitoring, how you measure the impact. And the last but not the least is, in fact, the challenge with regard to financing. And this is something which is key, because I will put a link, in fact, with what was presented before. Is we all think that yes, we have a financing gap, and we need to have a project, and we hear that we don't have bankable project and so forth. Which is true. The idea is how do we structure the project, and what we have, for example, today in Morocco, we launched a lot of huge infrastructure projects since 2000, and one is which is everybody is familiar with is regarding the renewable energy and the solar energy in the south. But the issue now is that we have a situation where the huge projects that were developed and financed, now we are looking at them and we can see, in fact, for some of them, and not the impact, but the return, in fact, from this investment. And the question here now is how can we structure differently, in fact, the project to make sure that we realize the impact that we expect from this type of project. And instead of having the financing coming at the end of the chain when we design a project, to make sure that we place the financing in the beginning of the structuring of the project.
When it comes to measuring and monitoring the impact that this type of financial arrangement this type of finance is having, how long do you think it'll be before, as you said, people will start to understand and speak, as you said, fluent SDGs? Because presumably when we get to the holistic, when we've tackled the whole of the issue, we won't need to remind people that certain business models are indeed sustainable. It'll just be taken as read.
No, I agree. I think it's quite a challenge with regard, in fact, to the monitoring and measurement. I think the effort need to be allocated in the energy, even if it's solar or power, whatever. But it's something which is important for a country. That's what's happening. For example, in Morocco, there is a kind of squad team that was put in place within the Haut Commissaire au Plan, which is the planning department, and focus on trying to measure, in fact, the SDG and the impact. But I just want to say something, which is, I think, with regard to the business model. We are in situation for Africa, for emerging market, for Morocco. When we look at, in fact, development and what kind of business model, we see, in fact, what's happening, for example, in Kenya, the development of the mobile phone rather than go through the path of the fixed line. It's exactly the same for solutions that are being offered, in fact, for various businesses. Bear in mind that the future of these countries should not be only a copy of the past of the North. I think, which means that there are space, and we are in the situation where we can create a new solution and think about new solutions that take into account our local constraints and also the expectation, in fact, of local people. I think that's why this kind of new business model that integrates different type of impact and try to design, in fact, a solution which is, so far there is no copy of it elsewhere. I think it's something which is online with what we're trying to do. It's difficult, it's not easy, but I think we must take this direction, and we have no other solution than doing it so. I believe that if we want to ensure sustainable financing of SDG, it has to be rooted into the local market first. Because if you do it without the local financing market or financial sector, because I think it is important that to have this kind of diffusion of the concept, the objective within, in fact, the field, and not having the local market being crowded out and put aside. I think it is important. It is important also for capital market. I think we are talking about investment management, and asset owner also should be more and more involved. And to do so, you have to make sure that local capital market is developed enough to make sure that participate to the financing of SDG.
But that's not possible in every market around the world,
No.
is it?
No, I'm talking about, for example, Morocco. This is one of our missions, is to work on developing, in fact, the local capital markets, be it on equity or on debt and so forth, because it is key. We have pension funds and we have insurance companies, so we have to make sure that we create, in fact, the instrument to enable them to invest. And if we succeed, and what we are doing, we start doing it for infrastructure financing, for example, as we close a transaction with regard to the desalination project, which is the biggest plant, in fact, in not only in Africa, but I think in the world. And having, in fact, pension fund being involved in the investment, it makes it more comfortable for international investment to come in and to compete. So this, yes, I think for the financing gap, this is important, because if we don't involve and put the energy in order to make sure that local players are also involved in the financing, I think it will maybe it will take time, in fact, to achieve financing of the whole SDG. It is important. For me, it's a necessity to make sure that local players are not being crowded out. We have to invest.
Hamid Tawfiki, for instance, in Morocco, away from your business specifically, because obviously you mentioned very impactful projects like the desalination plant and so on and so forth, how does one sell that message?
I'm Moroccan by birth and French by education. So I'm torn between wearing my yellow jacket or having a siesta. But I will try to do both. So you have I think the issue here, when we're talking about the tax, and we have something equivalent, for example, in Morocco, where we launched a very important and huge project since 2000. And now when we take kind of stock of what has been done and what are the impact of this type of infrastructure, we realize that the impact on employment was nil. Not nil, I'm just exaggerating, but the impact was not there. So the people, in fact, concerned is to have a job and managing also inequality. So you have to have in mind this type of objective when you design the impact. And this is why we are rethinking, in fact, the way we need to structure a project, not only to improve their profitability, but the impact they have on people. And I think this is exactly the same thing, because we cannot look at things only on what I call in general terms or on average, but you have population that cannot be left aside. You have to deal with it, you have to manage it, and you have to put in place the system or the solution that can enable you to move smoothly, quote unquote, this transition. So we have the same thing, which is employment, youth employment. So we have to find a solution when we design a project to take into account the education and employment. This is first. It's not only having a nice road and an airport and so forth, but we have to do this.